All right, I think we can get started now, folks. Thank you so much for joining. Good afternoon, everyone, or afternoon for those of us joining in the Pacific Standard Time zone. My name is Meta Polywall. I'm with the Orange County Water District, and so thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Take it to the water bank, ensuring regional water supply reliability. So what do we really mean by that? It's a play on the idiom, take it to the bank, said to emphasize something of certain. And it's certain that California is experiencing historic drought conditions and that continued water supply actions are needed. So today we will hear from speakers regarding the SARCCUP. It is the Santa Ana River Conservation and Conjunctive Use Program. It's a regional groundwater banking agreement to better prepare our communities for future droughts, enhance our watershed, and improve regional water supply reliability. So before we begin, I would like to mention that we are in webinar mode, so attendees are muted to reduce background noise. The webinar is being recorded and will be available on the OCWD website and the YouTube channel. We will facilitate a panelist Q&A and an audience Q&A at the end of each of our speaker presentations. So we encourage you to submit your questions in the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. And during Q&A, we will do our best to address all the questions received and address them related to the topic at hand. So please do, hear from our speakers and ask those questions. In the event that we're not able to get to your question during the time frame allotted, we would be happy to follow up with you after the fact. So please keep that in mind, and we will make sure we follow up in case we're not able to get to the questions today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelist of speakers. First, kicking us off will be Adekunle Ojo, Manager of Water Resources at the San Bernardino Valley Water District. Next up will be Adam Hutchinson, Recharge Planning Manager with the Orange County Water District, followed by Ryan Shaw, Director of Water Resources at the Western Municipal Water District. And closing us off will be Leighanne Kirk, Principal Water Resources Specialist with Eastern Municipal Water District. So, Adekunle, I will hand it over to you to get us started.
Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to Orange County Water District and its staff for organizing this webinar series, and also for everyone joining us this afternoon. SARCCUP is one of those opportunities for Valley District to share its surplus supplemental water and then keep that water in the watershed. Next slide. Next slide, please. So you might ask, what is this water? What is the water source, for Valley District supplemental water, which is then being provided, to SARCCUP? And to get briefly to it, the source is the State Water Project, which is precipitation, that is rain and snow melt from the Feather River north of Sacramento, which feeds the State Water Project and serves more than 27 million Californians and about 750,000 acres of farmland in the Central Valley. And Valley District is one of the 29 state water contractors, and we are one of the state water contractors in Southern California. Mojave Water Agency, Metropolitan Water District, and some of the other state water project contractors in Southern California. You may ask, why? How can we, be projecting surplus water to provide to SARCCUP in the future? We'll get back to that later on in the slide. Next slide, please. Depicted here is Valley District water supply picture from now through 2045. And as you can see, the dashed line, the blue columns, are the existing supplies, and the empty, columns, on top are future supplies. The dashed line, the green line, is the demand with a 15% buffer on top of it. So what you will notice from this graphic is that we are projecting enough supplies to meet demand well into the future. So we're projecting that we'll have some surplus still water project water well into the future. And you might wonder, despite low allocations in recent years, we know that due to the feast and famine hydrology, especially that we have in our service area, some of our basins will get filled up by nature ultimately in the future, which will lead to us having some surplus still water project. Next slide. And we just want to show you that this is no wishful thinking. We've had surplus still water project water in the past, and even in the face of climate change, as indicated in the last slide, we're still forecasting future surplus still water project in the future. As you can see, between the decade of 2002 to 2012, Valley District sold to Metropolitan almost 220,000 acre feet. That's a lot of water. Next slide. And this slide is also depicting that in addition to the projected surplus water from Valley District, the State Water Project itself has surplus water in wet years. So depicted here is the period between December 2016 and March 2017. What you can see between February and March is additional wet year surplus that the Valley District can have access to, and when that becomes available, that can be provided to our partners. Next slide. So as as indicated in the previous slide, you can see that in the past, when the surplus water was available, Valley District sold it to Metropolitan Water District. And part of the challenge with this arrangement is that the water was not necessarily stored in the watershed. Next slide. So in setting up SARCCUP, one of the considerations is how do we keep some of that water, surplus water, when available within the Santa Ana River watershed? So this is the initial thought. Valley District, when it has surplus water, will provide it to Yucaipa Valley Water District and San Gorgonio Pass Water Agency up to 5,000 acre feet. The reason being that Valley District, as well as the Pass Agency as state water contractors, and Yucaipa Valley Water District is a common customer in the Calumet area. After the initial 5,000 is provided, any surplus water is then provided to Metropolitan, and Metropolitan provides it to watershed. However, Metropolitan was not very happy with that arrangement. There's some governance and institutional reasons why it might not be feasible to provide the entire surplus water provided to Metropolitan to the watershed. Next slide. So a compromise was reached. So Yucaipa and San Gorgonio will still get the up to 5,000 of the surplus. And when it's provided to Metropolitan, the compromise was that Metropolitan will provide 50% of the available surplus to the neighboring agencies, and that is Sarkup. Next slide. So again, in order to remind you, up to this point, what is Valley District role in Sarkup? Valley District role is providing the water that its neighbors then store in the Sarkup program. So Valley District, up there, at the top of the watershed, is a state water contractor providing the surplus, its surplus water to neighbors who are largely metropolitan member agencies. And they obtain the water and they store it. Next slide. So there are three elements in the SARCCUP program: habitat improvement, being number one, Arundel removal and Sarana soccer fish habitat restoration. I won't get to that. Adam might touch on that later. There's a water use efficiency component to it, and the largest component of it is the groundwater bank, with the goal of storing wet year water. When there's flood, when there's a lot of liquidity in the system, storing that water to serve up to 3 dry years in the future. Next slide. As indicated, in the previous slide, the largest component of SARCCUP is the groundwater bank. The partners received a $55 million grant as part of the Proposition 84 grant. I want to say thank you to the Santa Ana River Watershed Project Authority and the state taxpayers for making that grant possible. But the groundwater bank is the largest element of both the grant as well as the overall program, costing about $162 million. Next slide. So, storage is the graded equalizer. Just like many of us, we save for uncertainty. I compared this to some of us who have the promise of a pension, but because we don't know what the future holds, we lay on top of that a 457 plan, a 401A plan, some brokerage accounts, some savings, just so that we are well prepared for the future. And this is no different. Next slide. So on this slide are the program elements and the benefits. One thing you'll notice is that every agency is part of the water use efficiency element. Orange County Water District, is the only agency in the Arundel removal. When Arundel is an invasive, plant, that consumes a lot of water. So taking that water out of taking that plant out of the watershed, reduces water consumption and evapotranspiration. But one thing you also notice is that on the habitat restoration, you have a couple of participants, and on the water bank, every agency is participating. The water coming from Valley District, and every other agency is storing, that water, and that water, becomes, a form of additional insurance, for the Valley District service area. Next slide. So I'll just touch on this briefly. As I mentioned earlier, the Santa Ana River Watershed Project Authority manages regional collaboration in this watershed. And there are 2 project agreement committees. That's what PA stands for. The PA 23 has oversight over the water bank and habitat component of SARCCUP. And the Project Agreement Committee 22 has oversight on the water use efficiency component. Next slide. And this is the governance aspect. It's it varies a little bit from what was shown previously. That when the groundwater bank is now in operations, it's the elected officials. Some of them might be part of the existing PA 22 or 23, who will have oversight of the groundwater bank operation, and they will provide oversight to the operations committee. The major difference is, as you will see, is that the role of SARCCUP changes when the groundwater bank is in operation. Next slide. So to touch briefly on this, this is how the groundwater bank operates. You can see the groundwater basins in the watershed. The San Bernardino Basin will provide the greatest storage. So to simplify it, you can think of some of these groundwater basins as, let's just call them tanks, big tanks, to store water, big banks to store water when available. San Bernardino provided the biggest space, followed by Orange County, and then you have smaller storage in the other groundwater basins like San Jacinto, Chino, Riverside Basin, and Elsinore Basin. Next slide. And groundwater basins, they're not visible, so we don't tend to appreciate their scale. This slide is just demonstrating, comparing the Sarkup groundwater bank to surface reservoirs. So one thing you notice is that most of us are very familiar with Lake Paris. Sarkup is around the size of Lake Paris. Sarkup as a groundwater bank is bigger than Lake Silverwood, it's bigger than Big Bear, it's bigger than Lake Arrowhead. So it's a decent sized bank. Next slide. So this is what we're working towards, being able to store water in wet years and take advantage of it, in dry years. So the San Bernardino Valley the Municipal Water District is used as an example here. We can have some of our stakeholders utilize the storage space. You remember a couple of slides ago, we showed that Valley District has about 64,000 of storage space in the bank. So if we utilize about half of it, and store 34,250 acre feet, that could provide up to that number, of yield for 3 years, in a dry year. On the right, you can also, see how agencies, can utilize that space. So for example, Orange County Water District, it's sitting on top of the Orange County, groundwater basin. So it might make sense for Orange County Water District to utilize this, the space in its own groundwater basin to store its water, rather than storing it in San Bernardino and then figuring out a way to pump it down to Orange County. However, agencies that are closer to San Bernardino Basin might choose to utilize some of that storage space in the San Bernardino Basin. An example is Western Municipal Water District that could store some of its water in different groundwater basins, and then use new facilities or as well as interties to move that water when they're pumping it out. Next slide. So this slide is showing some of the additional facilities that were put in place to allow for both the banking as well as the retriever of the stored water. This is not showing existing or old facilities, but showing new facilities. And one of the advantages of the SARCCUP facilities is that they can be used to move this SARCCUP water as well as other water. In other words, some of these facilities are multi-beneficial in nature. I will stop at this point, but to summarize, that SARCCUP start with Valley District providing the water to to partnering agencies who store the water, and that water can be retrieved in dry years as an additional supply source. At this point in the presentation, I will hand over to Adam, who will present on the Orange County portion of the program.
Thank you, Adekunle. Appreciate it. Really proud to be part of this project. It really showed the success of regional collaboration and working together for the benefit of everybody. So Orange County Water District, just for people that don't know about who we are, we were formed in 1933 to manage and protect the groundwater basin. There were a lot of undesirable effects happening back then, seawater intrusion and overdraft. We're kind of a pre-SGMA type of agency. And so we worked very hard to become a sustainable groundwater basin. And we manage for 2.5 million people. We have 19 major retailers that pump the water out. So we're more of a wholesaler, groundwater basin manager. We don't provide water directly to the retailers. And the groundwater provides about 75% of the total water supply to our area, as shown in the black line in the map. Next slide, please. So we're really blessed to sit on a very large groundwater basin that contains a massive amount of water, 66 million acre feet of water. But we can't use all that water. It would be physically impossible to pump that water out without causing massive subsidence and seawater intrusion problems and et cetera. So we actually use 500,000 acre feet of that storage space. That's kind of the operating range that we work within. So we carefully manage our inputs and outputs to make sure that we don't exceed that. And the SARCCUP storage that we talked about is going to be within that 500,000 acre feet of space that we managed to. Next slide, please. So as Adekunle mentioned, there's 3 components to the SARCCUP project. We have the groundwater bank in Orange County, that's 36,000 acre feet. We have the habitat improvement, which is arundel removal, and that saves water and benefits the habitat in the upper watershed. And then we have water use efficiency, and MODOC, our local agency down here in Orange County, is administering a portion of that grant to help retailers be more efficient in their water use. We were also able to get grant money for 5 new extraction wells, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits to Orange County? Well, we get access to new water, like Adekunle said, the State Water Project. But we also have the option to buy water and wheel it through Metropolitan to our area as well. So if we want to go out in the open market and buy water when it's available, we can do that in addition to the State Water Project water. And of course, the goal is to bank it during the wet years whenever they happen, put that in the ground. As you know, that's valuable. Dry years seem to be increasing in intensity. So we need to bank that water when you have it available. 5 new production wells to be constructed that will help our groundwater basin be more resilient in terms of extraction capacity. So when we do call on that water during dry years, we have sufficient production capacity to pump that water out and deliver it. The arundel removal I mentioned earlier, that's a very thirsty non-native plant, and we're removing enough to save 2,400 acre feet of water per year into the future. And of course, you talked about the water use efficiency as the other component of the project. Next slide. So the 5 new production wells, these are the agencies, cities that receive grant funding for these wells. Grant funding really helped leverage the existing investments in these wells, over $25 million in cost. And so we're happy to be able to provide this grant funding to these 5 cities and retailers. And all these wells have been drilled right now, and they're basically being fitted with equipment and pumps and whatnot. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of the kind of equipment that we use to remove arundo. Most of this arundo is behind Prado Dam along the Santa Ana River. You can see the arundo behind this machine, very tall grass. It's actually the largest species of grass. It looks like a kind of like bamboo, if you will. Very water thirsty plant, burns very hot when there's fires, and so it's a fire hazard. So it's really important to try and eradicate this and remove it from the watershed. The next slide. So we've been successful in removing the square mile of arundo that was in the grant application, and this map here shows where that arundo has been removed. You see most of that there is right behind Prado Dam, and our wetlands is right above the shaded areas, and the Santa Ana River goes up towards the right. And so this is a massive effort, and we'll continue to remove arundo and keep it out of the watershed going forward into the future. Next slide. So now I'll turn it over to Leighanne, Ryan Shaw, to talk about Western.
Great, thank you, Adam. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to walk through some of Western's SARCCUP projects. But before I go on to the next slide, for better or for worse, I've had the privilege of being a part of SARCCUP starting in 2010 in SAPA's first One Water, One Watershed program. So it's really exciting to see the whole planning process and see this finally come to fruition. Next slide. So Western has a series of projects under SARCCUP. The first 2 bullets are groundwater wells. There's going to be a few down in Elsinore. basin that Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District is taking the lead on. There's going to be a couple in the Arlington Riverside Basin, which Western is taking the lead on. There's going to be 2 new interties between Western and Riverside Public Utilities, the Magnolia Intertie and Canon Pump Station. And then the biggest project is the La Sierra Pipeline and Sterling Pump Station, and that's where I'm going to spend most of the presentation today. Next slide. So I mentioned Canon, Campbell Pump Station and the Magnolia Intertie. This is just a design graphic of the Canon Campbell Pump Station. It's along Alessandro Boulevard and Overlook Parkway. It's a very interesting location. It's going to be butting up against a residential area. So we've had a lot of outreach and communication with those residents to ensure they feel comfortable once construction starts. So those of you in the PIO world know how difficult that can be sometimes. But the pump station itself is going to be 10 CFS pump station, and it will take delivery of SARCCUP water as well as local groundwater from Riverside Public Utilities into Western's retail system, kind of at the highest level. And from there, we will be able to move that water not only to our retail customers, but also to an existing intertie with Eastern Municipal Water District. Next slide. So La Sierra Pipeline and Sterling Pump Station, at the end of it, it was about a $40 million total construction cost project. The pipeline itself is 5 miles of 30-inch pipeline, and it connects to existing facilities with Western's primary distribution system, what we call the Mills Gravity Line. And the Mills Gravity Line, and I'll show you a graphic on a map here a few slides from now, but the Mills Gravity Line takes imported water that we purchase from Metropolitan Water District from their treatment plant that's located along Alessandro Boulevard. And it feeds imported water via gravity all the way down to Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District, Temescal, and the city of Corona. The second portion of this project is the Sterling Reservoir and Pump Station. It consists of 1.1 million gallon reservoir, concrete reservoir, and the pump station has a capacity of up to 30 CFS. Now, this pump station is located right next to SAPA's office. For those of you that have been to SAPA's office over the last few years, you've probably seen a lot of construction going on right there. It's also right next to the 91 freeway. So if you're driving through Riverside on the 91 freeway passing SAPA's office, you can actually see this reservoir and pump station now from the freeway. Next slide. So why is this project really important? I wanted to focus on this one because I think it goes to the core and the heart of what SARCCUP is all about. It's about partnerships and working together and finding ways to be more local supply resilient for emergencies, for regular water use. Right now in the middle of this drought is a perfect example of when the water bank could be used. So hopefully we'll be ready for the next drought. But really and I'll show you on a couple maps here, but the La Sierra Pipeline and Sterling Pump Station has the ability to move several sources of water, multiple directions through what we call kind of some regional infrastructure that we can move to a dozen different retail agencies. Next slide, please. So I mentioned multiple water sources. This is kind of the pump station is kind of the hub of our regional system now. We can take water from the Chino Basin via the Chino Desalter Authority. We can take water from the Riverside Arlington Basin, as well as get water from the San Bernardino Basin all the way up near the foothills. And the Riverside and San Bernardino Basins, we have a partnership with the Riverside Public Utilities where they actually pump and deliver the water to Western on our behalf. And then finally, the pump station not only can take all of these local groundwater sources, it can actually what we call reverse flow. It can take water out of the Metropolitan's Mills treatment plant. So flow water multiple directions. And I'll show you a little graphic on that in a second. Next slide. Okay, so this is just a little schematic. I know there's a lot on here, but bear with me. The big purple dot right there in the middle, that's the Sterling Pump Station. Again, right at the 91 freeway. You see up in the top left corner, the Chino desalter. We can move about 3,500 acre feet per year to the pump station and deliver it multiple directions to multiple customers. You see the city of Norco in red and the Arlington desalter right there in the middle. We can move Arlington desalter water multiple directions. That's what those red arrows are indicating. And then all the other agency names and their respective acre foot numbers there, that's our existing imported water system. So you'll see in the top right, Mills Water Treatment Plant. That's where many of our agencies get imported water through Metropolitan Water District. So again, what's really unique about this Sterling pump station is, and again, I know there's a lot on this graphic, but we're just trying to show that this pump station is now kind of a regional hub to move multiple sources of water, multiple directions. Next slide. So here's just another simple schematic just to kind of give you a better visual of how complicated it is. So at the site, I mentioned we've got a reservoir, 1.1 million gallon reservoir. We have 6 pumps that will eventually lead up to 30 CFS delivery capability. 4 of them, I believe, are gas powered, 2 of them are electric powered. And you can see the arrows going multiple directions and multiple water sources. This is a brand new operation for Western operations team. And we successfully moved water from the Chino Basin all the way up to the Mills gravity line, which again can feed all the way down to Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District. So we're able to move water across the region. Again, not only stored SARCCUP water, but local groundwater that comes out of each of those respective basins. Next slide. I got 2 more slides. Just want to share some photos. These 6 photos are during construction of the La Sierra pipeline. For those of you that have driven on La Sierra, it's a fairly well-traveled and large street. So you can imagine all the outreach and disturbance that occurred building a 5-mile pipeline. But our team is actually really proud. We actually got compliments from the public and a few schools that we had to construct this pipeline by. We did a very good outreach program, which really made the process a lot easier. Next slide. A couple pictures of the Sterling pump station up in the top left. That's early stages of the reservoir. Just below there, you can see the concrete placement for the actual footings of the pump station, and you can see the 91 freeway in the top left of that picture. Top right, just another construction picture, installation of valve riser pipes. And then the last one at the bottom right is vertical turbine pumps and motors being installed. And I think that's my last slide, and I will turn it over to Leighanne Kirk for Eastern's update. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, so my role in SARCCUP is as the lead staff member for the program, and the engineering department is the lead on Eastern SARCCUP project implementation. So with that said, I will do my best to describe the project with the upcoming slides. Next slide, please. So, but first I'll give a little overview of Eastern. So Eastern was established in 1950 and provides water, wastewater, and recycled water services to a population of nearly 1 million people, both wholesale and retail. And we serve about a 560 square mile area and are currently only 38% built out. So there is a lot of growth potential that Eastern is constantly planning for in this region. And Eastern is one of the 26 member agencies of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Next slide. Eastern has 5 divisions with publicly elected board of directors, more than 600 employees, an annual budget of nearly $450 million, a 5-year capital program of over $500 million, with more than 180 active capital projects, and is the 6th largest public water utility in California. Next slide. And Eastern service area spans from Moreno Valley to the north and Temecula to the south in Riverside County, and includes 7 cities and unincorporated areas. And you can see our location relative to the other 25 Met member agencies on this map. Next slide. So our core services include providing drinking water, wastewater collection, and recycled water. About 83,000 acre feet of potable water was provided in 2021 from a combination of imported water sources, groundwater wells, and brackish desalters. And Eastern also operates 4 regional water reclamation facilities with a daily average of 47 million gallons. And Eastern also provides over 33,000 acre feet of recycled water to a variety of agricultural, municipal, and environmental use customers throughout our service area. Next slide. Eastern takes both imported treated water and imported raw water from Met. And the map here depicts the locations of these facilities, as well as the locations of the groundwater wells and the brackish groundwater wells within our service area. Next slide. So this slide shows a comparison of Eastern's water supply portfolio from 1990 and 2021. Our imported water supplies have decreased by 18%, which is primarily a result of the increase in recycled water during this time, and secondarily, the addition of the brackish desalters. And although groundwater production currently makes up 16% of our total water supply portfolio, we are in the process of implementing several large projects to further reduce our reliance on imported water supplies, and one of which is our SARCCUP project. Next slide. So the next few slides I will show will highlight Eastern SARCCUP facilities that have been partially grant funded through this program. We are receiving approximately $12.7 million towards the construction of the 40-acre Mountain Avenue West recharge facility, as you can see in this picture, which is a component of our larger San Jacinto Valley Enhanced Regional Recharge Program, plus the addition of 3 new potable wells, which we call wells 201, 202, and 203, as well as conveyance pipelines. And the Hewitt and Evans groundwater treatment facility is also being constructed through this program, but is paid for with Eastern funds, so not utilizing the grant funds. And these sites are owned and operated by the district and located within the city of San Jacinto. Next slide. So here's an aerial of the Mountain Avenue West recharge facility that includes 3 separate basin facilities. One is a stilling basin that will settle out the silt prior to water flowing to basins 1 and 2 for recharge. And this approach minimizes silt getting into the recharge basins and therefore reduces maintenance. And the recharge basins have the capability of recharging up to 30,000 acre feet per year. For the SARCCUP program, Eastern is dedicating 19,500 acre feet for storage, which you've probably seen on previous slides, or 6,500 acre feet per year over a 3-year period, if you consider that on average there are 3 wet years out of every 10 years. And it is also worth mentioning that nearly 400,000 cubic yards of soil was exported off-site to the Saboba tribe who wanted the soil. And this equates to roughly 27,000 truckloads during the course of construction. Next slide. The slide describes some of the project features that were installed due to its close proximity to the residential neighborhood and other infrastructure. And some of the features included dust control measures, lining of the embankment slopes, a perimeter berm to reduce traffic distractions, and 11 monitoring wells in and around the facility. Next slide. So the design of the facility maximized the recharge capacity while also considering the O&M needs of the district. So for example, the design team maximized the wetted area at each basin site and a maximum depth of 10 feet to balance storage and hydraulic head with operational effectiveness. And additionally, 2 recharge basins allow for one to be recharging while maintenance is being performed on the other, including periodic scarifying and removing silt and organics that build up, thereby maintaining a high recharge rate for the facility. And next slide. And this project was also a partnership with the city of San Jacinto. This includes the addition of a 1-mile trail loop around the facility, educational signage and exhibits, native landscaping, which you can see in the photo, and security features like the perimeter fencing and surveillance as well. These features will be owned, operated, and maintained by the city through an agreement they have with the district. Next slide. So here's a photo showing drilling operations at one of the 11 monitoring wells that were installed in and around the recharge facility. to monitor water quality and groundwater levels. And also these monitoring wells offer ancillary benefits by capitalizing on infrastructure to serve multiple purposes, like monitoring the water quality from our Groundwater Reliability Plus program, which includes other components that the district is implementing. Next slide. So the recharge facility was dedicated last year on October 28th, 2021. And here are photos showing Eastern's board president, Polly, speaking at the podium, as well as other board members with our general manager, stakeholders, and community leaders that attended the event. And you can also see in the background water recharging the groundwater basin. So this facility is fully functional. And once the 3 wells are completed, as well as the treatment facility, the full SARCCUP project can be realized, and groundwater will be able to be pumped and treated from the banked water from SARCCUP from recharge into the Mountain Avenue West facility. And this map shows the locations of the well sites I mentioned and the conveyance pipelines. We are also implementing well 205 as part of this project, but that isn't grant funded, but it will be part of the water banking program for SARCCUP. So the well drilling and conveyance pipelines are complete. The well equipping is under construction, and the treatment facility will be under construction soon. Next slide. Here's the schematic of that treatment facility, which is required to treat the water that will be pumped from the wells. So the design is complete, and we anticipate advertising the work this month for construction, and estimated construction completion is 2 years, around mid to late 2024, following completion of the equipping of the wells in early 2024. Next slide. So as part of the operations component of SARCCUP, the operations committee, which comprises the basin agencies on this panel today, will utilize a software tool to track and manage the transactions that take place. So several years ago, we identified the need for some sort of data management software program to track the complex transactions that will involve the movement of both physical and paper water between the multiple agencies, the financial tracking and reconciliations associated with those transactions, the ability to monitor the status of multiple groundwater basins and the volume of banked supplies available, facilitate communications and coordination between the agencies and the operating committee, and to support agency planning needs. So the agency is contracted with a company called DBSNA to develop this tool, and they started working on it earlier this year with Eastern staff as the technical lead. Next slide. So some of the core key tracking functions for the paper water include the offers to import water for banking, purchases of offered water by SARCCUP agencies, and transfers and exchanges of banked water. For the physical water, recharge of purchased water into designated basins, extraction of the banked water, and conveyance of the water to be recharged or banked or extracted for consumptive use. And the tool also has the functionality to see at a glance the available volume and capacity to support the invoicing for the multi-agency transactions that we envision taking place, and also to support agency reporting requirements. Next slide. So here is a snapshot of the home screen of the tool showing the dashboard, including program actions, the basin actions, documents that can be uploaded, reports that can be generated through the program, graphs that can be made through the program, as well as management of the tool. And the tool will be used by each of the SARCCUP basin agencies to input data and be able to generate reports, like I mentioned, as required by their own agency or other stakeholders, such as the water masters. And also this will help provide an annual reconciliation that each agency may need to perform with Metropolitan Water District from whom we will be purchasing the water from through SARCCUP. Next slide. So here is an example of the types of graphs that can be generated in the tool. So the top graph shows the purchases and deliveries by agency, and the bottom graph shows the agency's storage by basin. So what you are seeing includes testing data for now, but once the tool is complete and live in the next few months, real data can be entered, and we can actually start to track all of the purchases and deliveries that are being made through the SARCCUP program. And next slide. So as I mentioned before, the tool can generate reports by querying data. So this feature will be useful for agencies to report out to their finance departments, executive management, or others that I mentioned, like water masters, who may request the information. So the operating committee will also use these reports for annual reconciliation purposes. So we're almost done with wrapping up this tool with feedback from all of the agencies, and we envision having this tool completed in September, as well as the operating agreement completed by the end of the year. So once all of those features are completed, we can actually start to begin tracking the SARCCUP program and the benefits that it will provide for the region. So this concludes my portion of the presentation. I will hand this back over to Meta to take it from here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leighanne, and thank you so much for to everyone, to all our speakers today for your great presentations. Before we jump into questions from the audience, I do have a couple of questions that I thought we could ask all of our speakers. So I wanted to open it up to a roundtable panelist discussion. If our speakers could please come back on camera. And while they do that, we have listed here on the next slide contact information for our speakers. So we do encourage audience Q&A, but if you think of something after the fact, you are always welcome to contact OCWD at info@ocwd.com or any of the speakers listed here today. And this will be listed on the slide deck that would be posted onto the OCWD website. So but feel free to take screenshots or jot them down as needed. Let's see. I will stop screen sharing for a moment here so we could see all our speakers. And I think Adekunle is planning to join. I saw him on for a second, but I'm sure he'll come back on camera. Thank you. So, we've all heard about the great work being done at your respective agencies, all the great infrastructure that's being built, how SARCCUP is moving, regionally, how the water is moving. So really appreciate you sharing that context. And I really wanted to talk a little bit more and highlight, the collaboration and partnerships that bring projects like this to life. And projects like this, understandably, don't happen overnight. I think we heard Ryan say it began in 2010. I believe he said it for better or for worse, but 2010 was the year he provided. And I wanted to ask, in addition to the SARCCUP program partners that you mentioned that are involved, were there any other external support beyond the partner agencies that helped bring this program to fruition?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it and you guys jump in. I think Adekunle mentioned that SARCCUP funding came through SAPA, through Proposition 84. So that was the piece that kind of brought us all together initially. We had conceptualized, as I mentioned, over a decade ago, something like this. And then when the funding became available, we all got together. I think we had a team of about a dozen or so folks that kind of put the concept on paper into an application through SAPA, got the funding. But I think that's kind of how it really came to fruition and got kicked off. At least for Western, and Orange County is probably similar, we have dozens of retail agencies that we serve imported water to. Same with Valley District. So being able to access whether it's Valley surplus water or metropolitan water for conjunctive use purposes, I think is huge, and have the ability to move it to all of our retail agencies. So they have all been more or less a part of the process, whether or not they've participated directly by building projects or not. I think almost the whole watershed has probably been involved at one point or another.
And I'll just say that, I think we have had support from Metropolitan Water District for a long time now. Discussions started several years ago, and then there was sort of a lull for different reasons. And then we came together about 2 years ago to finalize an agreement. And that did take some time, but we received their support, we received support from the Met member agencies. And I think that was a really important milestone for this program to finally reach that point where we can say that we're working together on this program, and we have an executed agreement as of last year, last fall. So I think that was really important for us to achieve, and having all of their support.
Yeah, I agree with everything. I think I just want to add that the Department of Water Resources who gave us the grant funding was very flexible as well in terms of amending the agreement, because the program morphed and evolved over time. And one thing that we didn't mention at the start that I think is important to note is when we applied for the grant years ago, we had a certain concept of what the facilities would be, what we needed. But one of the first tasks that we did was we hired a consulting firm to create a model for us to really model how would this water physically be moved around and what facilities would be needed to maximize the existing infrastructure that we have. And that model showed us that there were projects that we had thought we needed that we didn't need, and there were other ones that we did need. And so the project got changed and evolved, and that was a really important process to go through. And DWR was very flexible in allowing us to change the shape of the program to maximize the benefit to the watershed. And so DWR is a very good partner for us in this whole process, and I really appreciate all their support.
That's great. Thank you. Were there any, challenges? And I like to think of challenges as opportunities. We heard about program evolvement. Certainly it's been a decade in the making. But were there any maybe lessons learned or kind of hurdles of first getting this program started that some of you can share with us?
I'll go. I'll say that, I think one of the challenges was you have multiple agencies trying to put together this program in such a large geographical area, and something new. I mean, this is something that hasn't been implemented, certainly within the Santa Ana River watershed, to this scale. So I think, as Ryan mentioned, discussions started in 2010, which predated me here at Eastern. But there was so much work that went into it in those earlier years, and then receiving the grant through Prop 84 really, I think, solidified the group in moving forward so that these projects could be implemented. So I think overcoming the challenges of just working together with, having different missions, having different projects, bringing those projects to the table, and also incorporating Metropolitan within the program and making sure that we, have this sort of arrangement within the agreement that fits into their goals and objectives as well. So we weren't only looking out for our needs as water agencies, but also Metropolitan as being, a very beneficial partner within this program. So I think, we've overcome a lot of differences. There's been so much progress made to date. And I mentioned, we're wrapping up the tool and the agreement, the operating agreement, hopefully by the end of this year. So really, once the projects are completed by the individual agencies, we can really get this program started and receiving the benefits of it.
Yeah, I would just add, it is challenging, but like you said, it's an opportunity. I think Adekunle showed a map of 6 groundwater basins throughout a 2,500 square mile watershed. And what I think is really important is the element of trust that we all have working together, agreeing that we'll share these basins and move water amongst each other. A lot of times we can get pretty focused on, just Western, just Valley, whatever agency we work for. But this program, I think, showed that we can work together. And I know we're all really excited to get construction done and start moving some water.
Yeah, I'll add that, like Leighanne said, we have multiple agencies with different missions, different boards, a lot of different interests. But what we have in common is the need for water, and we all are within the same watershed. And so that kind of the glue that really ties us all together, and that desire to really make sure that we find that win-win is what kept this whole thing going. And it took a while to get there, but we found the win-win for everybody involved. And so you have to be patient, keep pushing forward. It can be a challenge, but I don't think there's any alternative other than making it work, when it comes to water.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to it is that over time, many of us have come to embrace, that despite the jurisdictional boundaries, it's one water, it's one watershed. So when we come together and get over the jurisdictional boundaries, a lot of great things happen. So, and it involves having long-term employees, within these agencies who can continue to move the ball until you get, to the goal.
That's a really great point. And water knows no boundaries. I know we talk a lot about, in our industry, we talk a lot about service areas, but it is a very precious resource that everyone on this planet needs and uses. And that was a great point. What's next for SARCCUP? Can the program be? I know we're just getting it started from an implementation standpoint, but is there anything in the works? Can it be expanded?
Yeah, I'll jump in. The Inland Empire Utilities Agency, IEUA, due to some their own process, they weren't able to participate in the conjunctive use portion of the program, but they would like to in the future. So I think there's a big opportunity for them to create storage space and get engaged in this program in the future. And that door is open for them anytime they want to jump in. So I think that's a pretty logical expansion that might happen here in the future at some point. And but we got to get the water first. We know that climate change and state water project a lot is challenged right now, and so I think look forward to getting the banks filled, and then we can figure out where we go from there.
Yeah, I would expect once we finish construction and, like Adam said, get the banks full and prove to ourselves that we can do what we say we're doing. Adam had a great graphic. We have so many large groundwater basins. I mean, it's huge, the amount of water that we could bring in and store and move amongst each other. So in terms of expansion, I think if we are successful in this first round, then yeah, I could definitely see us not only IUA, but other agencies that may at some point raise their hand and say, I'd like to participate.
Yeah, I think, we have the foundation now. It's taken a lot of years to get to this point, but the foundation's laid. We have the tools in place, the infrastructure that, other agencies can participate, and we can also seek some other water banking opportunities using the same SARCCUP approach. If we prove, it to be successful, which I'm sure we will. We've had a lot of different people working on this program to make sure that it is a success. And especially for Metropolitan too, because I don't believe any of their other member agencies have a similar situation. So I think they're looking at this also to see how this could work within other parts of their service area. So we're really excited that we've come to this point and we're almost to the finish line, and we can get this program going.
So I think what I'm hearing is we'll be doing maybe a future SARCCUP webinar as well in a couple of years is what it sounds like. I do just want to pause for a moment and just remind our audience to please go ahead and submit any questions that you may have as well. Or, if you think of something after the fact, light bulb goes off, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of the speakers directly or to OCWD, and we'd love to continue the conversation. Leighanne, you mentioned that it sounds like this is sort of a first of its kind in the Met service area, so in Southern California. But are there other regions beyond Southern California implementing a program like this? Are we seeing this anywhere else in the state, the nation, elsewhere?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know it's definitely unique to the Met service area. And I'm sure it's occurring in other groundwater basins throughout the state or nationally, but I'm not aware of any. Do any of you know there's a similar program?
Well, there's a lot of conjunctive use programs in the state of California. Those are pretty well established. But I think what's unique about this program is it encompasses the entire watershed. And I think with the implementation of SGMA statewide, I think that's really that has to be the approach to be agencies take within their basin, in their watershed, is to really look at it as one water and try and work together and collaborate. Right now, some of them are pretty bifurcated and cut up in small pieces, and so they're going to have a hard time. But once they come together and really take the regional collaboration approach, they're going to have a lot better success with developing programs like this. So I kind of hope that we're kind of a model in that respect in terms of cooperative management at a watershed scale. And so I think in that respect, it's pretty unique in California.
So, well, if I can, I'd like to jump into a couple audience questions now. How much does the existing groundwater contamination from past agriculture and industry impact your efforts?
Sure, I don't know that it directly impacts SARCCUP, but anybody that pumps groundwater has to deal with water quality challenges, whether there are just native constituents that we have to treat for, or if there are legacy agriculture or industrial constituents that we have to treat for. It's everywhere. You know, I'll use PFAS as the simple example that's going on right now. Probably every well in the watershed or throughout California, maybe even United States at some point is going to have to manage and treat for PFAS to some certain level, unfortunately. So I don't know if anybody else has anything to add there, but.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to it, that, for example, in the San Bernardino Basin, we have a groundwater model. And we also have a groundwater model for the entire upper watershed. And we're building, we're almost done with completing the water quality model, for that groundwater model. In other words, we know where the contaminant plumes are. We can always account and address, for them in the recharge as well as the extraction.
Yeah, I think for the most part, imported water, whether it's state project water or Colorado River water, tends to be very good quality. So in some cases, it actually improves your water quality when you recharge that water into your basin. For example, the TDS, total dissolved solid, the state project water is in 300 to 300 range, and our groundwater is 600 plus. So we're getting a benefit there. But there is existing groundwater contamination, like Ryan talked about, and we're aggressively treating, building treatment systems to deal with that. That's just going to be an ongoing issue that all of us are facing in the future is treatment. But if it's wet water, we'll take it and we'll figure out how to treat it and make it usable.
Yeah, that's the same for Eastern. I mean, we have treatment facilities to address the contamination occurring within our basins as well. So I think we're all monitoring the water quality and legislation that comes through and addressing it to make sure that, we provide a high quality of water to our customers.
Great. How are losses, for example, groundwater outflow, estimated and accounted for? We talked a little bit about modeling. So is it modeling? Is it leave behind?
It's maybe a timely question. We have a working group that meets every 2 weeks, and we just talked about this about a couple meetings ago. So there's actual real losses, and then there's modeled losses, and then there's accounting losses, with the water masters. At least this is how I kind of view it. And I think for SARCCUP, because there's right now 6 different groundwater basins that we're going to recharge and extract from, and they all have different rules for how they estimate or account for losses. Under SARCCUP, I think we've tentatively agreed just a one-time 5% loss for it, regardless of which groundwater basin we recharge. That's not set in stone yet, but that's kind of what we're thinking about. But it is a really good question because every basin manages it a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And, I'm going to end on a question that did actually get Adekunle. Thank you for providing a response, but I thought it was maybe helpful for the audience to hear. And the question was, is the SARCCUP agreement with Met perpetual, or does it have a termination date? And Adekunle, if you don't mind sharing, or I can recite your response because I think it's an interesting point.
Yeah, there's a very interesting legal structure for this arrangement. there's an agreement between Valley District and Metropolitan for the water. And as indicated, this is tied to the state water project contract, with the California Department of Water Resources. The existing contract right now, however, they will end in 2035. There's a contract extension process, in place to extend it by an additional 30 years. Every state water contractor needs to go through this process, before it's all official. So once the contract extensions are in place, and the state water project contract extension is extended, it will extend the life of the SARCCUP, the agreement too. I don't know if Ryan wants to add anything, or Leighanne, but it's kind of a cascading agreement.
Sure, and the relationship is unique to SARCCUP. Adekunle had a couple slides trying to show how the agreements work, but it's state water project water that either comes to Valley District and they sell that to Metropolitan, who then sells it to the SARCCUP member agencies, or the SARCCUP agencies can go directly to Metropolitan to purchase some of state water project water from them. So it is a little unique, but I would say, I hope, I don't want to speak for future boards, but I hope this is a perpetual program, and we can get agreement extensions as needed, because it's a big program, and I think it'd be a loss if it were to go away in the future.
Yeah, I want to add one thing too that we haven't touched upon in this presentation. I think it's pretty important. One of the key benefits of buying the water from Metropolitan, the surplus water, is it can be designated extraordinary supply water, which is a special category that Metropolitan has in their planning documents, where if we store this water they deem extraordinary supply, it then becomes available during allocation periods when they reduce the amount of imported water that agencies can get because of drought and their storage levels are lower. This extraordinary supply water can help make up that cutback that Metropolitan imposes on the users. So that's a really great benefit. It's hard to come by that source of water. It has to come from outside their service area. So it really represents a new source of supply. And so that's what this water represents. And so that's one of the key benefits that we're going to get, is that extraordinary supply water that can be used during allocation period.
And I'll just mention that the Met agreement is tied to the same date as the Valley Met agreement, and we are also making the operations agreement tied to that same date as well. So though that Metropolitan and SARCCUP agreement takes precedence over the other agreements that we have. So if something were to change with that date, then obviously we would have to modify our own operating committee. But we do have those potential extensions within both the Met agreement and our operating committee agreement.
Thank you so much for those points. And I'm going to end on one final question, and we'll end early today. With the moving of water around from basin to basin, are there any conflicts with existing legal requirements on basin flows of the various water masters in the region? And if so, how have you worked that out in the past?
I'll just say for Eastern, there will be restrictions on our San Jacinto Basin because of the water master. But, in that case, we could purchase the water from Metropolitan in lieu, or we could possibly store the purchased water within the San Bernardino basin area, groundwater basin, if we're not able to store that water within our own basin.
Yeah, from Valley District and Western are the water master for the San Bernardino Basin, and we will work closely with the basin stakeholders to address how some of this will be accounted for in the water master report, the rules and things like that. Brian, I don't know if you want to add more to that.
Yeah, I would just say, in general, we collectively, for all the basins we're planning to store water in, we either are the water master, we are the groundwater basin manager, or we sit on the board of the water master. So I think that's going to make it much easier for SARCCUP to move water amongst the basins. Kind of to Leighanne's point, there probably will need to be some side agreements just so the accounting is done properly. But since we're all a part of those basins, I don't see that as a huge hurdle.
Yeah, just a note of trivia for those of you watching, this whole program came out of the Santa Ana River Water Master Group getting together and talking amongst each other about this valley water. And so the water masters themselves for the Santa Ana River was kind of the group that gave rise to this whole program.
Well, thank you all so much. I'm going to pull up just one final closing slide for us, but I just wanted to thank all our speakers one more time, and appreciate all the information you've provided on SARCCUP and everything that's involved. And we really do look forward to hearing more about the project in future years as more as more comes online. Water is moving around, and we'd love to stay connected and hear more about it. So I wanted to thank you all again for your great presentations, and thank all our attendees for joining today. We hope you enjoyed it. I just wanted to send a friendly reminder that this webinar is being recorded, and it will be posted onto the YouTube OCWD website and the YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.